right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I have for you guys today, I want to talk a little bit about Regan Grimes, specifically the several physique updates that he's been posting recently. The fact that he's already qualified for this year's Mr. Olympia, people forget because he qualified pretty early on, but he was one of the earliest qualifiers for the 2021 Olympia, so he's had the luxury of taking all this time off to focus only on prepping for the O. So because he hasn't competed in a lot of these recent shows, a lot of people forget that Regan is in this lineup. And then you go back to his Olympia placing last year where he took 15th place. And then you take that placing, and a lot of people just kind of write him off for this year's Mr. Olympia. And when you talk about the crop of young up-and-coming guys, the new guys, Hunter Labrada, Ian Valier, Nick Walker, you could even put Justin Rodriguez and Sergio in that young guys crop of guys. But Regan is another one, extremely young bodybuilder in his 20s. He's been praised for a lot of his career as having really good lines, a really aesthetic physique for a men's open bodybuilder. He even made the switch to classic physique, where he also qualified and competed in the classic physique Olympia. And he's switched back and forth between divisions, but it seems like ever since that switch, he hasn't really nailed getting back into men's open bodybuilding. And for a guy with so much potential, such great lines, such a small waist, an aesthetic physique, but also at the same time being a men's open bodybuilder that is Olympia caliber, because you've got to be Olympia caliber to even get to the Olympia. The fact that he's gotten there 2 years in a row says something about the kind of bodybuilder he is. If you can get to the Olympia in classic physique and then keep getting to the Olympia when you go back to men's open bodybuilding multiple times, that is very impressive. There's something about you that makes you a special kind of athlete in the IFBB that you can do that. It's something that you don't see very often. So that brings me to the physique updates that you guys have been watching so far. The posing videos at 7 to less than 7 weeks out from the Olympia. We're getting very close now. The one thing that I think Regan really needs to fix is size. He needs to come in bigger so he doesn't get overlooked on the Olympia stage. I think that was the big problem for Regan. While he did come in, he came in pretty conditioned. He came in pretty aesthetic with the good lines like he usually does. But he was simply outsized. And I don't know if that came from switching to classic physique, coming all the way down from the 300-plus pounds he was when he was training in Kuwait. So I'm looking at these updates, and I do think he looks bigger. Do I think he looks big enough? I guess we're really not going to know until we see him on the Olympia stage next to these other guys, because I thought he looked big enough last year leading up to the Olympia, but then you put him on stage and he looked a little bit narrow. He looked a little bit small. And in some of these posing videos, he still kind of looks a bit narrow in the front poses. I think his arms and legs look bigger, but I think he needs a little bit more. He needs wider lats, I think, is the big thing. His shoulder to waist ratio, his lat to waist ratio, while he has a small waist, doesn't make him have the illusion of being as wide as some of the other guys. I think that, to me, is the thing that jumps out when I'm looking at his physique, is more width in the lats to make him look wider in the upper body, because some of these shots, I think he just looks narrow. But I wanted to start off the video talking about Regan because we've spent so much time talking about the young guys, specifically Ian, Hunter, and Nick. And Regan is another young guy, and he's another guy that's qualifying for the Olympia consistently early in his career, at a young age. He's got a ton of potential. He's got a great structure, but no one's really talking about him at this year's Olympia, and could he be a guy that kind of sneaks up on us and does really well here? Potentially. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about Regan Grimes' physique and how it's looking so far. Is it big enough? Now, next up in the news, a little bit of classic physique drama. This was about Logan Franklin. This time, it wasn't Logan instigating any drama or talking any trash, even though he's been pretty good at that in the past, getting his name out there versus Chris Bumstead specifically. But there was this guy, and I noticed this. So basically, Logan Franklin, his image was on the poster for the Arnold Classic. Logan is competing in the Arnold Classic, as you guys probably already know. Now, this other IFBB pro, Fabian Larabia, on Instagram, commented on that post and said, "I don't understand what Logan does on that cover. There's so many bodybuilders with more career time than him, bodybuilders with better condition than him, bodybuilders who have won many competitions, and you have never put it on your cover because they do it because he has 1 million followers." Then he says, for that thumbs down, and he tags buys and tries all the bodybuilding YouTube or bodybuilding Instagram pages rather. So this guy is an IFBB pro, but he has in his bio, his name is Fabian Paredes, but he has in his bio that he was the first place winner of the Mr. Olympia 2020. Now, this is actually not the first time I've seen some pretty harsh trash talking coming from Fabian, which, by the way, overall, I think when these guys have a public beef or when these guys trash talk going into a show, I think overall it adds entertainment value to the show. It makes bodybuilding a little bit more interesting, and it gives it a dynamic outside of just posing against another guy posing. It gives it like another layer of competition, the fact that there's a mental aspect to it. Now, Fabian is a guy that I've seen do this multiple times. And I've seen Logan trash talk too. But I think it's good when they're doing the same show. It comes off as a bit disrespectful. Fabian isn't doing the Arnold Classic. He's not competing in the Arnold Classic. In fact, this is probably a good time to show you the Arnold Classic Physique lineup. Alex Combernero, DeAndre Campbell, Jarek Crew, Logan Franklin, Brian Jones, Fabian Meyer, Courage Opara, Terrence Ruffin, Tony Tavares, and Danny Unin. So by the way, the 2021 Classic Physique at the Arnold Classic, it's going to be like a miniature Olympia. These are really, really good competitors. What I would like to see is Steve Lorius compete there. And actually, I was just looking at the website, and it looks like they added Danny Unin, and they also added Peter Molnar to that lineup. So maybe they could still invite more people. Maybe they invite Steve Lorius. I think it would be cool to see him there. He's competed there before. I believe that was the year he lost to George Peterson, if I'm not mistaken. But it would be cool to see his name on that list. But anyway, not to get on too far of a tangent, this is going to be a really good Classic Physique lineup. And like I said, you've also got Peter Molnar and Danny Unin. Those are two names that are going to make this a really interesting competition. And you've got some names in that list that won't be at the Olympia. I even saw Coach Greg Doucette. He commented on one of my videos about Brian Jones, who's in this lineup, and he said he predicts that Brian Jones will be second at this year's Mr. Olympia, which is a bold prediction. And personally, I do think Brian Jones is going to move up from 5th place last year. So I still think he's going to be in the first call-out. I still think he's going to be in the top 5. The question is, will Brian Jones be in the top 3? And it would certainly look good for him if he were able to win this Arnold Classic going into the Olympia. But of course, you got Terrence Ruffin, who's runner-up at the Olympia last year. That's going to be a tough obstacle to overcome. Terrence is the real deal. But anyway, getting back to the point. The poster of the Arnold Classic with Logan Franklin on it was the issue that Fabian had. Now, typically, I think trash talk is good. When two guys are competing against each other, there's a healthy rivalry, there's healthy trash talk, and one man is proven to be better on stage. These guys aren't even competing at the same show. So to me, it comes off as a bit disrespectful saying that Logan doesn't belong on the cover of a show that he's competing in. And there's other guys on the cover of that show. Logan is competing there. Fabian, the guy complaining, is not competing. So it's not like he was in the show and was left off of the poster. So I don't really get it. And like I said, I've seen some kind of disrespectful comments from him before on different pages. It is what it is. He's got a really good physique, honestly. So, it's not like he's just some schmuck. But moving on to the next story, and pretty much a lot of the stories over the next couple of weeks are going to have a similar theme, and that theme is going to be the Arnold Classic because we're less than a month away now. We're coming into the 4 weeks out mark from the Arnold. Steve Kuclo posting a physique update today. Following his second place finish at the Texas Pro, where he missed his opportunity to qualify for the Olympia this year. So unless Steve is able to win the Arnold Classic this year, Steve is another guy that it looks like we probably won't see on the Olympia stage, but will get to see on the Arnold Classic stage. Now, Steve's biggest issue, I think, in Texas was conditioning. He needed a little bit more detail, a little bit more separation, and his conditioning, to me, it seemed like faded pretty significantly from prejudging to the night show. I think he looked a lot better at the pre-show than he did at the finals. And I think that was the biggest issue for him. At prejudging, I had Steve winning. He looked a lot sharper, but where he lost ground, it looked like Ian Valliere looked better. He looked sharper. He gained on Steve in conditioning. So the one thing that was a big plus for me with Steve was he looked massive on stage. And I believe he weighed somewhere in the 290s stage weight. I mean, the guy's gigantic. 290 in contest condition. I think maybe take away 5 pounds, come in 5% sharper. I mean, Steve has proven he's got the mass, he's got the size. He can outmuscle guys like Ian, he can outmuscle guys like Phil, but he needs the condition. He needs that detail, he needs that separation. So that's the main thing. When we see Steve on the Arnold Classic stage, I'm going to be looking for a sharper version of Steve than we saw in Texas. We know that he's going to bring the size. We saw that. And we say the same thing, or we used to say the same thing about Big Ramy. Size is great, but Big Ramy was kind of proof positive that size is not everything. That was kind of the, he's this massive guy, like wacky proportions, wacky amount of muscle. But because of his conditioning, he wasn't winning the shows that he should have been winning. And we've seen it time and time again. You can be as big as you want. You got to bring that crazy conditioning with it. And I think that's the story with Steve that we're looking at right now. So when we see him at the Arnold, that's what we should be looking for, is better conditioning than Texas. A lot better, I would say. Because the Arnold lineup is going to be a lot tougher than what we saw in Texas. Now, next up in the news, we've got the Brandon Curry physique update. Now, people were tagging me in this, asking me if I think it's recent. If you look at the physique update that he posted almost a week ago, he's wearing the exact same outfit, so I think this is from that same training session. It's not anything newer. It's not anything closer to the Olympia. I think this is just the same thing from a week ago, just another shot from that same workout. So nothing crazy there, nothing super recent, but I guess it is recent in the sense that it's a different image from the same training session that was supposedly a week ago. So like I said, I think we're going to continue to see a lot more from Brandon as we get closer to the show. These little sneak peeks here and there, these aren't going to be the talk of the season. We're going to get some, I think we're going to get some pretty impressive updates from Brandon as we get closer. Next up in the news, we also had Julius Maddox reacting to the results of the 800-pound bench press failed attempt on Wrigley Field this past weekend. So I'm going to go ahead and roll that clip for you guys as well. You guys can hear Julius's response to the situation and the attempt.
Meet recap. I couldn't ask for a better setup. Everything was great. The weather was great leading up to the event. Everything felt well. Not really had any issues. Besides, being a little underweight, but I gained the weight back. That wasn't an issue. I came home and weighed in at 456. So I know that weight wasn't an issue. Did I gain it too fast? Who knows? But again, there's no excuses. I didn't do what I said I was going to do, and that hurts deeply. When it's over with and you don't succeed at that battle, what I call battle, not the war. The war is still ongoing, but that battle that I lost over the weekend, it takes a lot out of you, man. We put so much time and effort, time away from our families, training, just training basically until, your body is basically beat to a pulp week after week after week. And during those gym sessions, on top of that, traveling to different places, shooting content, a lot of it, man, it's tough. I'm just in a weird season where most people that are in my shoes, they're just competing. And I'm trying to build, this social media presence, trying to build the brand and compete at the same time. And there's a lot within that, So again, leading up to the meet, everything was great. The day of, I felt great. I felt confident. Even from warming up, everything was firing on all cylinders. Had all my bros there. Warm-ups I jumped from basically red to red. So once I got to 6, I think it was like 673, something around there, and pressed that weight, that's kind of a telltale sign when I know I'm going to have a good day. And pressed the 673, speed rep, then 723, the same thing. 723 was mind-blowing how fast, maybe 734 I think it was. 734, 737, whichever one it was mind-blowing how fast that moved off the chest. So therefore it set me up for my third attempt, which I knew, seriously, when that bar was when TD lifted the bar into my hands and I felt that 800.3 pounds, it didn't shock me like it usually does. Usually I'm like, whoa, this is heavy. just put it this way. The weight is so heavy when you have 800 plus pounds in your hand that I can feel the bar. I can feel the bar wrapping around my palm. Like I can literally feel the bar bending in my hands. So with that being said, some issues that we identified that may be some weak points for me, possibly making sure I need to make sure I maintain back tightness, building my back, because your back is a launching pad for a big bench press. That's where all your stabilizers are. The more stable you are with the weight, the more fluently the weight will move, which we know that if the weight's not moving fluent, opens up air, meaning there's more opportunity for misgrooves and for you to lose your natural or your bench form, which again could cause to lead to a mislift. Identifying the weak parts. Forearms could be a weakness. We noticed that my wrists were kind of gravitating back, bending a little bit. And I think overall, it's just I need to cut out on travel so much. I'm traveling a lot nowadays, and I need to just, pick or choose. Either business or competition. One or the other. And I'm not saying forever. I'm saying for another 8 to 12 weeks whenever I figure out what the next steps, what I'm going to do. I don't know yet. Everything that I thought I was going to do leading up to this point, we're revamping everything. We're back to the drawing board.
And the final story I have for you guys today, I wanted to give one last physique update of Justin Rodriguez. So Justin is another guy, younger guy, newer guy, not as accomplished until really this year. He really started to make a name for himself, winning shows, qualifying for the Olympia. He's doing the Arnold as well. So he's another guy that in a few weeks we're going to see on stage at the Arnold Classic. He's another younger guy that got to the Olympia by winning a show. So he's another guy that has to be considered a threat in that top 10 at the Olympia. And realistically, top 6 at the Arnold would be probably my prediction for Justin. And again, I'm going to be doing full prediction videos coming soon. We're getting really close to the Arnold. So my Arnold prediction video that I do every year, that should be in a couple of weeks now. That'll be a good one. So stay tuned for that. But Justin looking really good, coming in off of a win, coming in after that Olympia qualification, and coming into a really strong Arnold Classic lineup. This is going to be a really good Arnold for all the divisions, really. I think Classic is shaping up to be one of the best Classic Physique Arnold divisions we've ever seen. I think men's open bodybuilding is shaping up to be one of the most competitive men's open Arnolds we've seen in a while. Last year was pretty good too. But I think we're in store for some real competition. We're in store for a treat when we watch the Arnold Classic this year. Again, there's no expo. It's just the show. So a lot of people are probably going to be tuning in via live stream. But it's going to be good, and I'm excited to see it. So let me know what you guys think about all these stories in the comment section down below. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thumbs up helps out a lot with the algorithm. It helps out a lot with the channel. It's absolutely free. So if you want a free, easy way to show your support, just hit like. That's all you got to do. You don't even need to comment. Subscribe if you haven't already. As always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.